Okay, my friends, we're getting set. I just want to make sure that we are sharing Dr. David Fletcher with the entire world. So I've got one more place to click. Okay, here we go. So welcome, Dr. David, to the Staffless Practice Podcast.
Oh, red letter date on my calendar. Thank you for having me.
You know, I've been a chiropractor for 26 years. I've been a lover of chiropractic for 33. And I've heard your name over and over and over throughout the years. I don't know anything about what you do. So tell me a bit and share with our audience, who are you? Where are you? What do you do? Why do you do it?
Well, first and foremost, like yourself, Jody, I'm a chiropractor, and I absolutely adore the relationship I have with that. I think that with most of us, we began chiropractic with the intention of, joining the healthcare field. And as we started to go further into the chiropractic education and then the experience in practice, you started to really see the wonderment of what it is that we get a chance to interact with. And so I was in practice for a number of years, but one of the things that I loved to do was I ended up doing a fellowship in sports sciences as well as in research. And every road I took, whether it was from in practice or the early education or in my research fellowships or otherwise, pointed in the direction that the incredible changes we see within chiropractic are through the nervous system. Although we're sort of branded through the spine, we actually are branded through the nervous system. So I started to investigate how we could use technologies to interact with the way that the nervous system was performing, to see how chiropractic would correlate with that. And to no one's surprise, it's amazing. And so we developed a set of scanning tools that were allowing chiropractors to, in their offices without a lot of difficulty. In other words, it's a very practical approach. They could scan the spinal nervous system, and that evolved into the global nervous system. And so we've been doing that for 30 years, and it's been a journey.
So first of all, you could be sitting on the couch, right? Why go the extra mile? What made you want to do it?
Yeah, well, we're only in 28 countries, and there's 200 countries out there. So my first and foremost relationship is that, this is such a big story, and I mean chiropractic and the relationship of a regulated nervous system. However, whatever profession is listening in or otherwise, the interactions that you have through a therapeutic model or through an analysis model really point to the fact that a person with a highly regulated or more regulated nervous system performs and expresses their potential. And so however you want to interact with that person through your super skills, there's a tremendous interaction that I see amongst other practitioners, amongst family members, however we want to get the word out there, that the health of the person, the nation, and otherwise is dependent upon the relationship that you have with how you perform and how you see the world.
I love the term regulated nerve system. So yeah. I've always said that when I get adjusted, I feel like my skin fits. And if I need to get adjusted, I feel like my skin's too tight. So can you tell us, we're speaking to people who think chiropractic is about back pain and headaches, or maybe they know nothing about it. They have no assumptions about it. What is a regulated nerve system?
Well, to begin with, chiropractic chose to enter into the nervous system, if you will, through the spine. And because of the correlationship it's a glove and hand relationship between the spine, the functional structures of the spine, and the peripheral nervous system, but it also is the central neurology. So what a regulated nervous system really means is that the reactivity of the moment is managed. What I mean by that is that we have a system that can perceive itself within its environment, take the appropriate steps, and protect itself. That's the fight-flight premise. But one of the things that a regulated nervous system does is that it shuts that down or manages that override, if you will, of the fight-flight and puts itself back into restoration and recovery in a spontaneous way. And a regulated nervous system does that without any outside interventions. It just spontaneously is built that way through our genomic expression. And one of the things that we know more than anything is that people embed distress within their functional nervous system. It develops compensation, develops patterns. And so that's what we as chiropractors refer to as vertebral subluxations. And notice it starts with the word vertebral, meaning that there is a structure, and the word subluxation, is derived from the idea of something less than performance. And as a consequence of that, we allow the chiropractic interventions to release that tension and let the body restore itself without the necessity of, hopefully, drugs and surgery.
And to a lot of you guys, that might seem like a lot of words, but what Dr. David just explained is exactly what I feel. I'm a feeler. I got to feel it, and then it'll make sense to me. That is exactly what I feel when I get adjusted, that the patterns of tension integrate. There's less stuck in my system. And I want to talk a little bit about how a chiropractor implements some of these concepts in their practice, if this is maybe even the first time they're hearing these concepts.
Well,
so let's talk about the chiropractor in in the middle of the country, in the middle of the US, who doesn't even know what the word subluxation means. And they hear you or one of our other mentors talking about subluxation-based chiropractic or patterns of tension in the nerve system. Where do they start?
Well, they start by listening and loving the person in front of them. And I know that seems ridiculous, but having a big ear and listening to what that person is doing to restore their health, either naturally or unnaturally, is really a big first step. But if you go into that conversation, Jody, with the intention to say, look, I don't know everything about what's going on here, but what I do know is that I can look to you and look at the corridor of this connection between the spine and the nervous system and see if there are embedded tension patterns, as you describe them. And if there are, then we have a solution or a starting point to look at. And because what I said earlier, if you adopt this neurocentric approach, and I'm speaking to chiropractors, but also other therapy models, if you adopt this neurocentric approach, you can have it all. Because once you address the relationship of how the tension or tone, which is, just as a quick aside, the founding principles of chiropractic from its very earliest, reason it existed, is that the concept was life, meaning living fully, is an expression of tone. And you use the term tension. And so tension and tone relate to how the body is perceiving itself. It's fighting itself or it's not. So how a chiropractor can invest into this next level is really just palpate. These are great sensors, by the way. These are incredible sensors. Is palpate the tone. But don't look for a misalignment in the spine or shift your perspective and say, how did that misalignment become so dominant? In other words, what was the steps that it took for the body to embed that pattern? And this allows the person to have a conversation with them about exogenous or outside stresses, which are, anything from old injuries, dietary habits, emotional distressors. Take your path that you want to discuss with the patient and say, listen, the starting point, or no, let me back that up by saying, I don't know, but what I do know is, I don't know all about your stress. I don't know about why pain brought you in here, but what I do know is that you are in a position where you need to take better care of yourself. So let's start with the foundation.
I had this conversation with a practice member last night. She came in excruciating pain, in tears. And of course, my heart is sad for her. It doesn't feel good to be in that pain, but what an opportunity for her to make a pivot, make a change, and to look to the chiropractor to say, make this go away. My message to her is, that's not my job. My job is to make sure that there's no interference, so that whatever your body is trying to process right now, it has as much power to do it as possible. And I think that she got it. And I checked on her last night and she was feeling great. She was feeling like things were moving. I think what you're saying is holding curiosity, holding space for curiosity with our practice members.
Absolutely. I love the term curiosity. I love to put infinite curiosity in front of that, meaning that we should be in awe. We should be in awe of the opportunities that we're given to learn more about the person in front of us. I also think that when the person is in front of us, we should honor their belief systems, meaning
Yeah.
their role of their own personal health care. It's not to make them wrong. It's to acknowledge that they're doing the best they can with what they have, at least in their knowledge centers. And our role is to become a trusted advisor. And when I make that decision, and I've been 40 plus years in practice. So when I make that decision to interact with that person, it's to become their trusted advisor, not through a symptom episode, but to support them to make better and better and better decisions for as long as they choose me. And, I'm very comfortable to say to that same person, listen, there's a time in which you need me, meaning you need to have all of the skills that I have to get you out of this rut you're in and to put you on a safer path. But there will come a time when you can choose to be under my care. And I'm going to give you the tools also to learn how that works. And then I ask their permission.
What are the tools to learn how that works? What is that?
Well, I mean, this evolves into what our technology does, is that it allows us to analyze how well they're making lifestyle choices outside of the adjustment. And what we do with that, again, it doesn't give them a lifestyle model. It looks at the embedded functional neurology. And so what we do is we indicate, for instance, looking at their heart rate variability, that they are locked into a pattern of chronic distress, or that they need to rest more effectively, or that they need to look at what they're doing when they're outside the office to continuously distress their nervous system. Could be sleep patterns, could be related to dietary habits. Most often it's emotional distressors that they just can't shut off. And I'm not a therapist.
Sorry. I explained to David before our podcast that I'm a Jewish mom and I interrupt a lot. Is it safe to say that you bring curiosity to certainty, and that's where you educate through? Yeah. One of the books that I've written is called The Curious Practitioner, and it's just the questions to ask when we're opening a practice. It's 952 questions to ask, because sometimes we don't even know where to start with we need the right questions to ask so that we can land on certainty. But it sounds like you've developed a system where we can find that certainty.
It is. And, we live in a world where there's a technological interface more and more every day, obviously. And as a consequence of embedding technology into our relationship with the patients, it amplifies this idea that we're testing, not guessing, shall I say. We can palpate with these, and we should have conversations with our patients. But at a certain point, we want to benchmark where they are and follow a trajectory so that they know that we're watching them every step of the way. And when we, for instance, on our boxing of the technology, there's a simple statement that says, look deeper. And it's a statement that says, you have the skills, and you are a qualified doctor, practitioner, whoever we're talking to look deeper than what their perceptions of their health are. So use the opportunity to build that trusted advisorship.
Wouldn't it? I'm thinking about what you're saying in regards to what we do for practices. And when I talk to a practice who's looking for a growth partner, my job when I listen to them is to look deeper. It's what are the real subluxations in the practice? Is it the front desk person who they refer to as the front desk, or is it their belief in what they do, or is it the exchange that they're in with their practice members? Always look deeper. So let's talk for a minute. Let's pivot and talk for a minute because this podcast is all about sparking joy in practice, so that if we're joyful in practice, our expression of what we do is joyful, and that joy is contagious and a ripple effect happens. So what do we say to the doctor or the PT or the whoever it is that's listening who can't find joy because their focus right now is paying the rent? Their focus right now is getting their own act together so that they can step up and show up and serve. I love the idea of saying to them, be curious, but what are the action steps that they can take right now to move towards success?
Well, I think that you have to look, it's a great question. I think you have to look backwards and ask yourself the big question, why? I was giving a lecture at one of the colleges, and I said, you are sitting here in this room, as young interns and young doctors, because of the choices you made to not be something else. In other words, you might have infinitely chosen to be a chiropractor, but at that moment you chose not to be something else. So there is a huge relationship you have with the choice you made, and you have to go back to that. It wasn't, I can promise you, when you get into this healthcare milieu, it isn't because the person said you can make a ton of money, being a practitioner. You did it from a higher calling. And you did it because you wanted to serve people. There's something in you that wanted to interact with people. And I think that that's a wonderful starting point. And we lose that because of all the noise in our lives and the money. There's more money problems than there should be, and et cetera, as you did that. So I think that you have to buy some free time to just reflect back as to the reason you chose to be in this role. And once you get it, you have to then decide what your level of excellence is. And I have, you can't see it in this office, but above my desk, it says, it's an Aristotle quote that says, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit." And one of the things that we have to do is habituate. This is how we treat people, if you want to use that term, or care for people, is that we have a starting point with an intention of excellence. And we can apply the same principles. That is joyful. When you find yourself on a path that you chose and that you have the skills, it's the Kaizen moment. It's that incremental, continuous, momentary change that allows you to say, I'm on the path, don't stop me. And mentorship.
Oh my God, it's so good. It's so good.
But mentorship in there matters. So you have to find the right community and the right person too.
Even if your one action step is putting your hands on somebody and holding a space for curiosity, that's going to change your practice. That's one thing that you can do that it doesn't disrupt anything. They don't even need to know that you're doing it. It's connecting through a different set of lenses. So let's pivot once again to staffless practice. Let's talk about, you either have a practice with staff who shows up only to do what they're great at doing, or you have no staff at all and you run things solo. How does that person implement what you're saying into their daily practice?
In a staffed or staffless practice, you have to assume the role of the CEO. It's your life and you're in the control setting. And what I mean by that is, I mean, we run a big company here. So and I have the title, I think it says right there, CEO. My definition of CEO is creative, exceptional organizer. That's what I wake up and I intend to do. So my first role is to become the creative creator, if you will, of the tone of the office. So if I don't have a staff member, I'm going to be walking in and making sure that I'm the person in charge, meaning, there was I used to, work with psychologists a lot. And there was this commentary that was, we were taught to look over our left shoulder and sort of say, who do you see? And the answer was, do you see the cavalry coming? And the answer is no, meaning that it's, you're self-responsible. So if you have a staffless practice, or if you have a staffed practice, you are the responsible person to make the changes or to make the tone of the office yours and shared. So, that takes a lot of work. There's a lot of introspection, shall I say, but this infinite curiosity to sort of say, how do I get there? And this is fun. And as I used to say consistently, try it for a decade or two and see if you like it. Because this is a life sentence. This thing called being in practice
is a life sentence.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want any other sentence. I love being a chiropractor, and I'm constantly in awe of what is possible. I also love the tool of going physical, emotional, spiritual, career, relationship, family. What can be pivoted on with curiosity, with intention, with CEO mindset. And guys, there's a book called Traction. It's the EOS system, the entrepreneurial operating system. Like, the elephant in the room is that I now have a team of 20 people, 20 experts who work with me. I'm the staffless person and I have this team. And when I'm asked about that, I say, I hire the team so that you don't have to. But boy, oh boy, did I have to learn what it means to facilitate a team. And you nailed it. The number one thing is I set the tone. I'm the visionary on the field. And if my vision for the company is things are in the toilet right now, or things are not going well right now, guess what's going to happen to the team? If I am blindsided by fear, like, I don't let the fear touch me and I just keep going forward. And I had to learn that early. And I think that that's a big piece for all of the leaders in our profession, chiropractic specifically. People like Danny Knowles and Paul Reed and Jeannie Ohm and Reggie Gold and these names that we become familiar with, what they have in common, Kim Thor, what they have in common is the fear is on the other side of this, right? They're forwarding on. They just go. So let's talk about ChiroFest, because that's how we came to have this podcast. It's my first year coming to ChiroFest. It's my first year speaking at ChiroFest. What can people expect when they go to ChiroFest and they experience the weekend?
Well, they're going to come into a big room. There's a big stage. I have spoken at ChiroFest 8 or 10 times. And the realities are is that I've never missed one. So it's in the Pacific Northwest, so it's got a vibe to it. The theme is, what's really great about it is that you get these different perspectives, but the thematic approach is all the same, which is find your perfection and your excellence. And you know, and again, it goes back to 100 different ways in which you can express chiropractic. Some of the details that are going to be discussed is how to practice differently. Some of the details are going to be associated with, you know, different metrics that are being measured, things of that nature. But the theme of it is unwavering, and it's about this idea of excellence within the chiropractic profession. And so it attracts these wonderful teams. You know, there's many doctors that have come many times, and they bring, you know, 6 or 8 of their staff members to join in. And I just watch their faces, and they are transformative. It's a beautiful thing. And, you know, there's some conferences you go to and there's people reading newspapers in the back, you know, and they're kind of like, people still use newspapers, scrolling, I guess, in the back.
I think people still use newspapers.
You know, they're completely distracted on the other side of it. And the realities are none of that happens in this environment.
They're tapped in.
Yeah, they're on the edge of their seats waiting for for the next jewel or gem to drop.
I can't, you know, I went to my first New Beginnings when I was 19 and I did a fire walk, and I started going to Green Book studies right after my first New Beginnings. And that was what I knew of chiropractic. And then I went to Sherman, and I still don't know. That's what chiropractic is to me. And I can't wait. I've been going to New Beginnings since then. I can't wait to experience that feeling, that vibe on the other side of the country. So I am excited to hug you when I meet you.
Whoa,
I'm excited
I can't wait.
We're going to have a lot of fun. Is there anything else you want to share with our community? How can people learn more about what you're doing?
Yeah, listen, the scrolling on the bottom is our website, and I encourage everybody to, especially, I mean, it's a website for professionals, not for patients necessarily. And so it gives you an introduction into what the dynamics of looking deeper are, especially through a technology. And as I said, we've been refining this process for a number of years. And as a result of that, you're looking at an apex moment of not only the ability to scan the nervous system through the spine and otherwise, but to report it. And so one of the joys I have is that we do millions and millions of scans on a yearly basis throughout our network. And one of the things we do is that we use machine learning to detect patterns that are associated with how we can report better, how we can evolve to put it simply. And I'm going to go back, Jody, to your word that has really caught my attention. And it allows the people to have certainty, but to be curious of what could be next for that person in front of them.
I'm going to bring you a copy of my book, The Curious Practitioner.
Yay!
I think you'll get it. Well, thank you for being here. And if you're listening to this recording, please check out insightscla.com if you want to learn more about how to get involved with what Dr. David's doing. And please check out ChiroFest. Come join us. Come play with us. And Dr. David, please stay on. I'm going to end the stream. Everybody go make the world better with great care, and we'll talk to you soon.